Welcome to the Emotional Abuse Recovery Podcast, a podcast specifically designed to help you heal after a toxic or narcissistic relationship. This podcast teaches you to use your subconscious mind to go from feeling stuck to set free. In here, you will learn how to use the power of your own mind to free yourself from emotional pain, move forward with confidence, and experience the inner peace you deserve in your healing journey after emotional abuse. I'm your host and subconscious reprogramming coach, Allison Dagney. So let's get started. Hey everyone, thanks for joining the podcast today. I am here with a new guest who I'm really excited to have this chat with, and we're going to be talking about some really, really interesting things today to help you and to help your children along your healing journey. So, Carli, if you could go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone listening.
Thank you so much. So I'm Carli. I am a Psych-K facilitator, which is a subconscious healing modality and energy psychology. And I'm also a former Montessori teacher. So I know a lot about about human development, children, and I work a lot with moms, families to clear any subconscious beliefs, limiting beliefs that are causing stress, anxiety, any of that type of nature for children, for parents, just support in that way. And this process really helps people understand their mind, get clarity, calmness, feel shifts, and then that opens up this incredible space to be calm, be in flow, co-create, understand themselves and their children better.
So you said, I want to make sure I have this right, Psych-K, like Psychk. What does the K stand for?
Yeah, so it's psychology, obviously, and the K is key. So it's key to the psyche, because it's kind of deeper than psychology. It's like this little key tapping into our subconscious, which is 95% of our brain. Mm-hmm. And mostly, like right now, we're talking with our prefrontal cortex, our conscious, and everything that comes in and that we come to focus is in our conscious. Everything else we're taking in, we see and feel and experience, even if we don't know. But our brain has a filtering system, and it brings to conscious what we want to focus on, what we believe, what we see, our confirmation bias. So this is getting into the subconscious. It's always on, it's always happening, it's always taking in things and understanding what it's actually doing. And by doing that and understanding that, we can understand ourselves better and also reverse or change what we are originally believing or feeling or experiencing.
Yeah, well, thank you for that explanation. And as you know, that's the work that I do too, is in the subconscious realm. So that's why I'm super, super excited about this, because a lot of people who have experienced emotional abuse, trauma, that are trying to heal from this, right, that are on their healing journeys now, a lot of them have children. And that's where you come in, because I was super just stoked to hear about that you deal with children and parents and supporting them with this, and here's why, because when I learned how to do this, I thought they should be teaching people this, like in primary school. We should be teaching children how to do this. This would change our world. It would absolutely change the trajectory of this planet. So let's first, before we get into that, tell us about you. Tell us about how you got to where you are now, the journey of getting to you to this point in your life.
Awesome. Okay, so Psych-K, I actually came to by absolute chance. I was in a situation where I was feeling quite anxious in my life at a job where I just was not being fulfilled, not being heard, ultimately bullied, but at the time I didn't realize. And a really close family friend who studies psychology, and they've done a lot of work in all the different modalities. They found Psych-K and they are like, this is gold. I can't believe what I'm seeing in the change in my clients, and was like, you have to do this course. And when they were bringing me on to do this course, they were like never imagining that I would create, my business and facilitate people. And I was so anxious and stuck in my worry that the thing was, I was like, no, I can't come. I can't take a weekend off. But I ended up getting to this course, and it was quite divine. I was kind of last minute pushed into it, and I just saw these dramatic shifts. I learned it for myself and I was like, well, this is absolutely incredible. So that's how I came to Psych-K. But rewind before that, I studied education and psychology way back when. And I went into education and I was this young, vibrant, optimistic person who was like, I want to help all children. I'm a child advocate. Let's make them confident and happy. And I just walked into one mainstream school, so disappointed, observed my placement and just was like, this is the issue. Like, this is an issue. This is creating this anxiety and these limiting beliefs. Like, does no one see this? And that's how I came to find Montessori. And her work is absolutely incredible. She was this doctor, this anthropologist. She just observed children, observed humans, and shared this knowledge. And part of your training as a Montessori teacher is you have to observe. You observe for hours. You observe how to be objective. Just, when we see children, we're like, oh, they're crying, they're hungry. Oh, they're doing that, they're being naughty. Oh, they're doing that, they're trying to get attention. But this is not putting our own projections onto our child. You just learn how to observe. And I was obsessed with that. And I love that. This is the 6 to 12, the primary age child. I don't know what you guys in Australia, we call it primary aged. Is that what you guys call?
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
because it's usually between kindergarten and in some cases 5th grade, and then there's like a middle school, like 6th, 7th, and 8th, or sometimes the grade school, like we call it grade school, or primary, is kindergarten through 8th. So it just kind of depends on where you're at and what part of the country.
Okay, awesome. And part of that, you learn about the child. She calls them planes, so different planes of development, so different ages and stages.
Okay.
And I went on to learn about the child in the 0 to 3, which is all about the child with the subconscious mind. And I just loved it. And I did education in psychology, but psychology also didn't really do it for me because just talk therapy, I just didn't understand. I didn't feel like, how does that really shift and change things? Like, yes, we can like understand our patterns and our addictions and our abuse, but then what? Yes, okay, I'm aware that like when I walk into this situation, I feel anxious because X, Y, and Z from my traumatic past, but how do I clear that feeling? And finding Psych-K was like, oh my God, you can shift it, you can clear it, you can become whole-brained, which is feel a sense of safety and security to the situation.
Yeah.
And also with the children and Montessori, she explains like, children develop, your brain develops. There's no such thing as a brain not growing and developing. And if you just observe and guide children, they can really teach themselves. And when they're interested, they will learn, and you can just show them the right materials, right books, the right how-to videos, and they'll soak it up. Humans, we do that. When we don't want to learn something, we just fall asleep. But when we're thirsty with knowledge about something, we can stay up late at night doing it. But was actually really affecting the children was actually their anxiety of not feeling good enough in experiences. So if they had dyslexia and they feel like they can't read, everything could connected to English, writing, reading. I'm bad at it. I'm terrible. I've been shamed. So that equals pain. That equals, this fight flight feeling. So I'm done with that. And people have that with maths, people have that with English, people have that with art, language, music, everything. And I was like, this is not true. And also what I was seeing is that a lot of the anxiety came from projections onto children, from their own anxiety, their own worry of their child from their experiences. So that was also what was playing out. And so that's how I found it. I found it by chance. I was very much led up to this experience of seeing the issues going on. And I was like, this is the golden key. This is how I can really support parents and support children in the deepest way possible.
Yeah, I love that. I actually wrote down like how we're putting our projections on our children, and you had brought that back up because it just happened to me the other day where my uncle passed away. This was my dad's brother, he was in his 80s, and my kids didn't really know him, but I knew him growing up, right? And even me doing this work, even me doing like the subconscious work and knowing just how impressionable children are to beliefs, I said to my 13-year-old son, I said, "Oh, you should probably," and I was about to say, message grandpa and tell him that you're sorry about his brother dying. And then I stopped myself and I was like, no, don't even don't even record that I said that. Like, it was already coming out of my mouth, and I had caught myself, because not that I don't want my children to be kind and caring and loving, but I can explain to him about what I did. I can explain to him about the sadness that grandpa's going through. I can explain to him about the situation and let him come to his own decisions on how he would like to handle that, what feels good to him, versus me now just projecting, my beliefs, like my children should do this or my children should do that, right? Because I don't want my kids to grow up with my filter. I want them to grow up with their filter, that they can make their own decisions and they can see the world in their own eyes instead of through mine. And I think that would have changed my life had I not had a lot of the program. Now, programming, like, it just happens, right? It happens because of our parents and our upbringing and society and all these things. We're little sponges from the day we're born, really, really highly impressionable. I think it's like to like age 8 or 9 years old, isn't it? Where your subconscious brain is in like more of a theta state. So that theta brain wave is really just kind of taking everything in. So I'm really excited, because what you're talking about is not something a lot of people are talking about, and how we can use this to help our kids and help ourselves, right? So I help women, that I help women who've experienced emotional abuse and rewiring their subconscious mind. You help parents, you help children, you help a lot of people in a lot of different ways. So let's talk about, if you would, from your perspective, how the subconscious mind takes shape, right? And how it actually forms personalities in children, like I was just sort of touching on.
Awesome. So this is from Montessori philosophy, and then from that I have gathered other information, because I soak that up. So that's where I get my information from. And so according to her, I'll use some terminologies that she used. So from 0 to 6, 0 to 7-year-old, 7-year-old, about 7, where the brain comes fully together, that's called the absorbent mind. And basically, a child, in order to survive, they absorb anything and everything from their surroundings, and especially 0 to 3, they learn everything about the world. And we know this with language. Like, every single child, normal brain will learn a language, will learn any language, and it's like the most arbitrary and complex thing, but we just learn it. They learn what to eat. A child in India will eat spicy food. A child in America will get accustomed to their food, vice versa. But because they have this absorbent mind, like you said, this subconscious mind, they're taking in everything, and they're such incredible observers, absorbers. They've done little studies on it, and their brains, they have the same mechanism as an adult, understanding faces, understanding scenes. And then eventually what they do is they prune, or they keep the ones that are important, and they let go of the ones that they don't need. But they're taking on anything, and they're also taking on the feeling and the experience. So if they're with a parent who is upset or anxious, they're feeling it. We're intuitive beings. So they're taking things on. So if they're an experience where they're getting fed and they're feeling food, eating with stress and anxiety, and they're going to pair that together, anything like that. And it's pretty incredible how, our subconscious takes in like 40 billion parts per second. So it's taking on everything in their surrounding, everything from their mother, their father, anything they come into contact with, their culture. But also it's even further than that, because it's generational. So if there is anxiety around money, they're observing and absorbing anxiety around money, and then they get to an age where they're an adult and they might have abundant amount of money, a good job, but have a lack mentality. And then if they start doing subconscious work, they might have taken it on from their parents, who took it on from their grandparents who are in a war, who are refugees, and this anxiety or trauma shows up in illness, a situation, a condition. So you kind of see these patterns. A refugee, family who comes from a refugee family, like they'll come to a situation where they feel displaced or a lack of belonging, even if they're around community and safe and comfortable, but they're still feeling something that they took on at a younger age. So we absorb anything and everything. And obviously, you can't save everything that you do and save a child. It's their journey, it's their experience. But just like what you said, is like, if you're observant of it, you stop yourself, you're conscious, oh, I don't want to affect this in my child. But having that conversation, hold on, erase that. I'm projecting myself and to you is modeling. I have fears, and sometimes I make them your fears because I worry and I love you, but I don't need to do that, which is incredible.
Yeah.
So that's the absorbent mind. They're the what child, they soak everything in. And then they go into the conscious thinking child after about 6 and 7. And this is where they change and they shift and they act and do things differently. And what I really love, you have a lot of these like mother groups when you first have a baby and you have support, but there are so many milestones that a child goes through if it's transitioning from that first pain child into the second pain child or coming into adolescence. And people just don't understand them. They don't get it. And once you start getting it, you're like, oh, wow, this is why my child's like acting this way. And now that I know it, I can really respect and support them through the anxiety or the fear or the regression or whatever's happening from this place of understanding and compassion.
It's amazing. It's so fascinating too, because, I think about when I had my first child and I was leaving the hospital and they handed me this baby. And I remember thinking, what? Like, you're just going to give me this baby? Like, what if I don't like do it right? Or what if I like mess up? And they're just like, off you go. We got more babies to deliver. And I was like, like it was very, very scary because I'm like, I don't want to mess up this little perfect bundle, But I think a lot of times what we end up doing is we put this label of parenting over top of all the things that include, just general health for the child, general physical well-being, like discipline. And one thing that I think is missing is this. I think this is a big piece it's missing, because when you talk about even like parenting books and stuff, nobody talks about this stuff. And this is the most important part, right? This is how we're helping our children grow up to be healthy, well-adjusted, well-adapted humans and adults in this world. So how have you seen, as far as like impacts, because obviously the generational trauma impacts it. I love that you brought that up, because I've thought about that too, how even things from generations past gets put down upon every other generation until it stops. Like, yeah, like somebody's got to stop it. Somebody's got to hold on, pump the brakes, because my mom would say to me, you should call your aunt and tell her you're sorry about that. Or you should send her a birthday card. And I'm like, what am I doing the same things to my kids? No, like I'm stopping that right now. So, what, as far as like, what do you see at the benefits to using this? Let's start with that. And then let's talk about, if you ignore it, what sort of detrimental effects it can have.
So Montessori, she has this really cool story, and I think this is how she got into it. Is she went to see a friend who had a new baby, and she was feeding this new baby, and it was guzzling milk, and it was crying and crying, and she's like, the baby seems full, and she's like, no, but the pediatrician told me I have to give it this amount of food. And she was like, but the baby's clearly not needing it, not wanting it. And I get that a lot. Like people will come to me in like a state of fight and flight and be like, okay, this is what's going on with my child, and this has happened, and I made a mistake because I told them, and now they're anxious, blah, blah, blah. And like, how do I fix it? What is your professional, opinion about the situation, and what do you expect I should do? And the first thing that I do is like I drop them into a Psych-K session and I bring them back into their intuition and kind of like clear all this anxiety. And what is here? What are your projections? What are your fears? What is this come from your mother or your father that you're not good enough, or that you're going to ruin your child? And once they come into this, it's called a whole brain state, because basically when you're in a fight, flight, I am unsafe situation, you don't consciously think about, okay, let's sit down, research, where should I go now? What should I do? You just do the first thing that you've always expected to do. And when you start talking to all the little parts of your brain and they're connecting, that's when you're doing it in a calm space. So this kind of way of working is coming back into your intuition. And we know our children, you know your child best. Like no person can tell you what they think that you should do better than what you think that you should do. And if you feel strong in that intuition and that choice of knowing your child, you will do it with such acceptance of whatever the outcome is, that it doesn't even matter the outcome. Even if, there's stress or a bumpy situation, if you move your child from a school, or if you separate, or if you have your self-care day, even though they're feeling that they need you and you've got this like guilt around it, all that, once you start listening to yourself and you're driving your parenthood and your relationship with your children from that place, it will flow, because it's not coming from fear, anxiety, negativity. It's coming from happiness and acceptance, and that's where it needs to be.
So how do you get into that intuition? Because some people, especially people who've been, under a fight or flight for a really long time, don't even trust themselves, right? They don't trust their intuition. I work with people a lot who we have to get to the point of, starting to learn to love and trust ourselves again. So how do you help them with that, getting, that intuition kind of ramped up again?
Awesome. So with Psych-K, how it works is you connect to the person's subconscious through muscle testing. And I can do it over Zoom, and I can surrogate for them, and I can connect to their energy field or their subconscious. It's kind of like radio waves. So you can also do it for children. So you can work on behalf of the child, like with the parent, if the child's going through anxiety and they're like, I'm not going to see some random person. And you test any kind of situation. If it's like, I have this situation and I don't feel like I'm a good enough mother and my child has anxiety, X, Y, and Z, and you test the beliefs around it. Like, I am a good mother. And if that tests to be weak, it means when you go into a situation as a good mother and you're testing weak, it means that you don't feel safe in that situation.
Right.
And then in order to shift and change it, with Psych-K, you do a whole brain integration activity, which is basically rewiring your brain to feel safe in that situation. Right. And there's all different types of whole brain integration activities that you test and see which one the subconscious wants. And it's really cool because they've actually done studies on this, and they've seen how the brain that has transformed and shifted. And you can read more about it if you type in Psych-K tests online. I think Bruce Lipton did a couple, and some other people as well. And you can actually see the change in the shift, and you feel it automatically. Yeah. And then what we subconsciously believe, we have confirmation bias, and we start seeing it. So that's what I do in a session. But then I also support people to get into mindfulness, and all kind of parents or people should be, as you said, doing this mindfulness. This is what should be in schools, because if we are following our intuition, if we're trusting it, and it doesn't, like what you said, especially someone going through like intense trauma, it doesn't happen overnight. Like anything, you have to learn it, you have to train it. You might start off with running, and that's your mindful practice, and then you might get into yoga where there's movement, and then you might be sitting in meditation for 5 minutes. But there's just or walking meditations. There's so many ways that you can start connecting to your brain or hearing your thoughts and training yourself to stop and think in a different way and catch your thoughts and be in charge of them and control them, not let them control you and your lifestyle.
That's interesting that you said catch your thoughts, because I just did I just wrote a podcast yesterday about that exact thing. Like, you've got to connect, like you said, connect to your brain and catch those thoughts. You literally you can't just let them fly away. I mean, a lot of times people just think that, like you said, I think it was like 40 billion bits per second of information. And we also have like 60 to 70,000 thoughts every single day. And like 80% of those were the same as yesterday. So we have these same repetitive thoughts going on, and we're not even paying attention. We're not even knowing that those are happening. And those are what's causing things like those anxieties or those worries, those fears, those feelings like guilt or regret or whatever. And so not only, because I think this is important, I think, as parents, especially, our energy, the energy that we come to our children with, affects our children, not only affects them, but sometimes is impressed upon them, so that now they're carrying it, right? So we have to be so careful, right? Because not only are we trying, and specifically to the people who are listening to this podcast, we're trying to heal ourselves emotionally, but we have to be aware that, especially if there's little people around us, that is actually impacting them.
Totally. And it's also their perception. So you might come into a situation where you're feeling really upset and angry because of a busy day at work, and your children come and say something to you, and you're like, oh, I'm X, Y, and Z. And they're like, I am the problem. I've made mommy upset. Yes. I've done something wrong. And they then shut off. They don't speak their truth. And that comes into childhood, from childhood into adolescence, into adulthood, is I can't speak my truth because it will make other people upset. And children, they just love us so much. They love you so much that they just want to make you so happy that they will. So you have to be really careful to allow them to just be themselves. And within Montessori, there's no external reward.
What do you mean by that?
Because external reward, as in like merits or tickets or cookies or little treats, because children will really, they want to do so well. They want to make you happy that they'll put their own needs aside. Mm-hmm. Even the most stubborn children, because people are like, no, my child, they're super stubborn. They push their agenda. But like, it's funny because these are the children that turn into the adults they have this shame and, this kind of trauma that they experience, and like presenting themselves, and it's almost like a response towards that experience.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking about that scenario that you described, and also it sort of led me into thinking about the words that we say and how that we how do I say this? Shoulds, like the should word, we should or we shouldn't do this, or those kinds of sort of highly judgmental words. When we use those words with our kids, then they absorb those. And one thing that I remember, I learned this a long time ago before I knew about subconscious healing, was instead of saying to your child, it was because of the external rewards that you were talking about, instead of saying, I'm so proud of you, right? Which seems like a really wonderful thing to say, you should be so proud of yourself for all the work you put into that, right? And not saying that you aren't proud of your child, right? Because you can still be, but it eliminates the need for them to seek that approval from outside of themselves. They start looking at it inside themselves. But then I actually was thinking about it, even taking a step further, instead of saying to ask them the question, how are you feeling about it? Are you feeling really proud of yourself? How do you like that you put all that work into, and this is the result, right? And so then they start seeing themselves
that you created for yourself.
Yes. They start seeing it themselves.
Sorry, I got excited.
No, I love that. Yeah. And when you ask the question, instead of telling them what they should, because I was even thinking well, why am I telling them what they should even be proud of for themselves, right? Maybe
Mhm.
I just should ask the question, because they might say, I didn't really try as hard as I should have, or I wanted
Mm.
to, like allow them to come to their own realizations about it through questioning, instead of impressing our beliefs and our judgments on how they should feel or what they should do or how they should behave, right? I understand there's the whole thing about discipline and all of that, because obviously we don't want our children running amok in the streets and, being criminals and things like that. So there's a fine line, but I think if you start really young with that, then you don't run into these issues probably as often later on in life, because it's already a really strong foundation. What do you think?
Totally. Yeah. And just having those conversations, because culture is so important and strong in school, in workplaces, in societies. And a lot of the things that children are learning in culture are kind of, this is quite extreme to say, but almost absurd. Like, because they're going to school and they're told, like, you need, reading and writing and maths to be good at life.
Mm.
And we're going to do this test and you need to do really well on this test, or you're a failure, you're a lack of success. And where in the real world do you ever get one chance, one shot, that, defines everything in your life? Like, it's not true, but we're telling children at a really young age to do that. And it just creates this layer of anxiety. And normally as well, it's given to children at a time where it doesn't actually support. It's the opposite to the needs of them developmentally. So, like, for example, in adolescence, they're rewiring their brain, they're becoming an adult, they need rest, sleep, calmness, and that's when society is putting the most pressure on them, and we're seeing the most anxiety and mental health issues and eating disorders, and this if it's binge drinking or drug taking, this exploration that is not supporting the child. So just having those conversations of, like, I know this is really important, but let's do it for you. And the schools just wants to see how well you're doing, and you can improve next time. But in the end, like, this, it's not going to affect your life. And just really unschooling and drilling them into, like, what is the positive of this? We can get better from our personal best. And inspiring them instead of, making it the be all and the end all. Like, we read and we write because it's a way to communicate. We can create stories and share our recounts, our experiences. Look, I read a book. I'm sharing and helping people through writing my book. Humans have created these subjects and art expression to support human development and in support life and bring it further. It's not something to feel anxious or negative about.
Yeah.
So just really sharing that knowledge with them and really preaching it constantly, because especially if they're in, like, a high pressure society, they're going to be taking that on, and they need that reality check.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. My 15-year-old daughter, she's a freshman, so she's in her 9th year. She is extremely intelligent. And she told me the other day she wants to go to cosmetology school. She does not want to go to college. And sort of like her whole family, like, I was the first one to go to college out of my family. Her father and all of his family have all been to college. Her sister's planning on going, her brother's planning on going, and she's like, not me. I'm not doing that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to continue doing that. And if I had said to her, like, you have to go to college and everybody's going to college and you're not going to get a job if you don't go to college. I mean, we've got entrepreneurs out there who didn't even graduate high school, right? That are making millions and billions of dollars in their businesses. Like, I'm not saying everybody's equipped to do that, but what is it that I am doing for her if I stifle her truth of what she wants to do and how, she wants to be? She's a creative person, right? That's what she loves to do. She doesn't like sitting there learning about, world civilization. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's just like, that's not really what I'm interested in. She's literally feeling suffocated because she's not allowed to be herself if she thinks about going to college. Now, could she change her mind? Yes, of course, that could obviously be a possibility. But, as parents, I think it's really, really, really important I love the idea of Montessori because it really just helps the child blossom in the area that they were born to. They were born to, not everybody is born to be good at trigonometry. Not everybody's born to be an artist. Not everybody's born to be an athlete, and why is it that we are putting everybody in these one, particular boxes, and then we set them up to fail because we know that this probably isn't the greatest thing for them, but we're going to make them do it anyway. And then they end up, in a totally different area of their life. So what is something, because I think that's great advice. What is something, especially, so put yourself in the position of people listening to this who are still in the throes of trying to heal from emotional abuse, from narcissistic abuse. They're trying to heal themselves. They're listening to this podcast. They're taking away, they're writing notes. They're taking, these things and putting it into action, trying to catch their thoughts, right? So what is now, because there are moms out there listening thinking, I'm trying to do this for myself. Now you're telling me I got to do it for my kids. So
Yeah.
what are you thinking? Like, what could you offer to them?
So just listening to this, they're already on that journey. Like they are aware, they're wanting to become conscious, they're wanting to become more mindful. And the more that you are calm, the more that you are catching yourself, healing yourself, that's going to rub off on your children. So just, the more you do that, the more you're not like feeling and feeling scared and reacting and projecting and starting to come into this calmness, you are already doing incredible work. So give yourself a hug, give yourself a cuddle. So that's the first thing. And connected to that is modeling. So model exactly that, working on yourself, shifting. As soon as you do that, you're shifting those ancestral generational trauma. You are modeling things for your children, and just have those conversations as well of, I'm sorry, I'm just a bit upset today. I just haven't slept. I'm not being so tolerant. I want to support you. Can we do this another time? Just really having that communication, obviously not oversharing inappropriately, but just being emotionally vulnerable and allowing your children to see that and accept that and model those ways of speaking and sharing and accepting that this is part of life, because they're going to go through their triumphs. They're going to go through, their moments of growth. And if they have these beautiful ways of supporting themselves modeled by you, then they're going to be able to deal with them a lot better than someone who hasn't. The other thing is just accepting and trusting them their journey, and also supporting them and accepting their journey. Every human being goes through difficult situations, and that's okay. And you're going to support them by just doing this work. And then, just get educated. You are not alone. And I'm actually, look out, I'm going to do some mother groups or workshops. So if you're really into that, come and reach out on me, come to my website, because I give a lot of information, because I obviously know heaps about human development. Children come to me at specific times, parents come, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense, because they're transitioning, or they're going through that, and parents are like, this is my child, this is my specific situation, and I'm like, oh no, this is a stage of a human development, it's a milestone, and this is what's happening here. So communication, doing your own mindfulness, get educated. There's so much out there. If that's, Montessori books, things on Instagram, podcasts, understanding child development, just understanding yourself, or humans in general. But we also are humans. So this stuff is also quite innately in us. And we just have to kind of step back and regroup. Like, why is my child anxious? why is my child feeling that way? Okay, how can I support them and teach them and guide them to not feel that way? Because normally it's something almost made up, and you just have to remind them, like, I know you're feeling anxious and this is real and we're going through something real, but actually we don't have to feel this way. Because, like, coming back to that test example, there's no such thing as doing bad in a test. Like, yes, you're getting graded and your teacher's just seeing where you're at, but let's use this as a way that you can do better the next time, or you can see where you're at. And if you want to push yourself, you can, if this is what you want. Or if it's not, it's okay, because remember, you're wanting to go to beauty school. And when you are ready to do that, you will learn it, because there's no such thing as not being good at anything, because everything's practice. And if you have the ambition and the confidence to do it, you will be able to do it. And just like reminding that in them and themselves. So yeah, just those. And also something about like really trusting the process, because a lot of our society and the culture and schooling, mainstream schooling, is very like, this is the thing, we're learning it, we've learned it in a week, let's do the test, let's rote learn it. And not all schools, not all teachers, but there's still this strong culture about that. Like, I have to be there now. Like, if I'm an entrepreneur, I need this amount of clients, and I need to make this amount of money, and I need to do this, this, and this. Like, the process is so enjoyable, because normally, if you're learning something or you're doing something, there's so much in that. So just allowing them to slow down and enjoy the process. And if you're going through your own abuse, and you're going through your own education, and coming back into your intuition and having these epiphanies through doing subconscious work and modalities, it's like so incredible. And most people will agree, and I'm sure you will agree, that when you have that journey, you're like, this has made me so strong, and I am so glad that I had this experience, because look where it's led me to now. And I can share my knowledge, I can share my wisdom, I'm so much stronger, and like, I killed it, and I feel so good.
I love that.
And then like,
yeah, go ahead.
And then like 2 minutes later, it's like, great, you passed that level, next challenge.
It's like a video game. But I love that. And I love what you said about everything is practice, because I say that all the time. I don't even like to use the word work. Like, when my kids are like, Mom's working, I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I don't even call what I do work. I call it practice, because everything I do is just an opportunity for me to reach the next level, for me to get better. And also enjoying the process, because to me, I wish I could go back in time and had known this stuff, because then I could have enjoyed my children's childhood so much more, right? I did enjoy it, but I could have enjoyed it so much more if I had known the things that I know now. And, you know, especially if you're a parent who's listening and you've got little ones, like, this is where to start, because you will not have the regret that I have of not being able to enjoy it as much as what I would have liked to enjoy it. So, there was another question I was going to ask you. Are there any, like, misconceptions or myths that you're aware of about childhood development that most parents aren't aware of, that you can kind of talk about?
So there's lots, and to do with every specific age development. So there's, Montessori breaks them up as the 0 to 6 year old, and then she still has like 0 to 3 and 3 to 6 and 6 to 12 and adolescence, which is 12 to 18. There's lots in everything. So it's kind of really understanding these different types of development. The first one is that, like, that child, the newly born child, they are so clever and so intelligent. So just, put all the information to them, talk to them, because they're understanding everything. Talk to them in normal language, give them language, they get it. You don't need to baby them. When you're teaching them, teach them in a way that's mature, in the sense that you would kind of teach an adult, obviously not the same way as an adult, but like, children, if you are eating, they will eat. You don't need to give them child food. a child wants to be like the people in a toilet, and you model that and go, this is the toilet, this is how we sit on it, here's your little potty, you can sit on it, and you can get all this information quite freely if you kind of want to go down that route of being a Montessori. Can you hear me clearly?
It's sort of cutting out a little bit, so I might have to edit a little bit. Let me see. Hold on. Yeah, it looks like you're
Okay.
just give it a second, maybe. Okay, try now. Oh, it's frozen again. Oh, there you go. It's a little better now.
Is this better?
Yeah.
It will come back.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, it looks better now.
Okay, it all seems clear and smooth.
Yep.
Beautiful. So I'll just go back to that. So a lot of, as I said, my teachings are Montessori. As I said, my teachings are Montessori. So a lot of this information you can get, there's books, there's free like little YouTube channels if you want to go down that Montessori guiding your child instead of teaching them as such and just observing them and presenting things to them for them to do in their readiness. So that's the first thing for the child, that first child in the absorbent stage. And then there comes the primary age child, and that child, they're a lot more social, and they can soak in information, and just that thing again about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Just they don't need extrinsic motivation. They don't need the merits. They don't need the little treat. People love doing things for other people, and that's what you really want to build in your child, because that's when they start doing things from their heart and not getting taught like, I want to do something for the sticker, I want to do something for the treat, which translates in I want to do stuff for money, for external things that are going to fuel my dopamine, instead of something that I already have inside me that I can create in myself, that's much more pure and intentional and following my own desires.
Yeah.
So those are a couple. And then the last one, I'll just do the adolescents. In that stage and age, they are so sensitive. They should be treated like a child, like that new child that's learning to scribble. If they're like, hey, look, I've created this song, and it's like awful song and they can't really sing, you have to be like, wow, what do exactly what you said. What are you proud of this? What do you think of your song? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? You just have to give them this like love and support, because they are so sensitive. They have this imaginative mirror. They think everyone's looking at them, and they need to sleep more. Their brain is working so hard. We see this in adolescence, how like so much is happening hormonally. You have to just like treat them, not in a condescending way, but like with so much love and support, as if they were a newborn. Because they're a newborn to adulthood, and they're testing out what that is and what that looks like, and they want to be an adult, and they want to be independent, and they want to go to the movies by themselves. And you can really make or break a child in that stage if you don't fuel their confidence.
What do you think about, I love that. I think that's great. It made me think about my kids when they're little. And I remember like, I'm a creative person. I love creating things and being creative. And I really pride myself in my ability to parent my kids in really creative ways when they were younger. And I remember my daughter, she was only maybe like 3 or 4 years old, and we were picking strawberries, like pretend strawberries, like they weren't real. Like we were picking them, we were making stuff with them, we were eating them, and how delicious they were. And like, it was just literally in our living room. And the other day I was watching a TikTok video, and this mom was with her daughter, and her daughter reminded me so much of my little girl at the same age. And her daughter, they had a big dog, and she's like, "This is my horse, and his name is Spin," or whatever his name was. And the mom kept saying, "It's not a horse. It's a dog. It's not a horse." She kept telling him it's not. And I was almost cringing. I was like, go get the dog's leash, put it on the dog, and be like, "Why don't you walk your horse around the barn?" And, like, I feel like creativity really builds confidence in children. Like, how do you feel about that?
Well, totally. It's just exactly what you said about this creativity. It's creative, and it's quite incredible that a child that is so little can look at a dog and they've seen a horse and they've created this situation where they've turned this dog into a horse. Like, and children do this. They pick up the banana and they're like, "Hello." And it's like, who taught you to do that? Who taught you to see a banana and think that looks like a phone, so I'm going to use it for make-believe creation? Or I'm going to sit in this box and it's now a boat. Like, and that's what we've done to create. Like, someone would have seen a little berry or something rolling and was like, "Oh, that could be like good for transport." And that's probably how a wheel would have been created. And the same with bridges. And people are like, "That thing that I see, I can turn it into something else." It's like so incredible when you actually think about what a child is doing in that moment. It is so clever. It is so creative. And it's especially now because we're living in a age and space where creation, collaboration, these are the skills that we need for the society that we live in. It's not, this rote learning type of way of being that we used to be in. And there was some importance in that. But in the end of the day, like, of course, learning spelling is really important. So telling your child that spelling isn't important is not true. But at the end of the day, if a child's really bad at spelling, you can get away with that as an adult. It doesn't actually matter.
Yeah, we can
not telling anyone.
We can see it because people all over social media can't spell.
Exactly. No one can spell,
Yeah.
including myself. But so, but like teaching spelling rules and learning spelling and practicing writing is really cool because it's a beautiful way of expressing yourself, and we can express ourselves and share knowledge. So that's what we want to teach. So not telling anyone to just abolish spelling, but in saying that, like, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But what does matter is that way of being creative. And yeah, what do I think of that? I don't understand what was going through her mind or what the age of the child is, but when children create, oh my God, jump into it, because it's like, whoa. And even might ask them like, "Oh, is that a horse?" And like, "Where is the horse?" And where's the setting? And help them build that creativity in their mind, because that is so smart. That is such an incredible way that the brain is developing when a child is doing that.
Yeah, it is.
And it's like a little child. It's like a 3-year-old is doing that. And it's like, how do you even know what a boat looks like? Is it from like a book that you saw and read? Like, where did you get that you knew to do that? It's so intelligent.
Yeah. And I love it. I love all parts of it. And I think that goes back to enjoying the process more too, because if you can kind of, one, do all the things that you're saying, like, really just ask a lot of questions of your children and model good behavior and work on yourself and get into your own thoughts and, see how that generational trauma could be affecting you, could be affecting your children, and allow them to be creative. And like, there's just so many wonderful things that we can enjoy the process if we do it in this manner. And I think that will really help not only us, but to do it for ourselves helps our children. But then also I think it has a boomerang effect too, where when our children they're teaching us, right? They're teaching us, and they'll start asking us questions back and say, "Well, Mommy, why do you feel that way?" Or, "Well, Mommy, what happened? Or why did that upset you so much?" Right? So as we teach them, because that's happened to me before, where I got upset one day in the car, my daughter threw it right back on me because I do that stuff to her. And she was like, well, didn't you consider this? Or maybe this was happening in her life and that's why she acted that way. And I'm like, oh my gosh, who are you? You know, but they teach us as well, which is such a gift. It really is.
Yeah. And just even, it's incredible. Just adding to that is like when children have their issues and their fights, they are real. And taking that time to have those conversations of like, instead of being like, it's just a TV program, like give me the remote, no one's watching TV, being like, okay, hold on, what's going on here? Like what's your side of the story? What's your side of the story? And there's a lot of emotion involved, and it, it will come out like, well, I just don't feel heard. And why do we always have to do what that my sibling's doing, and X, Y, and Z, and being like, okay, you don't feel heard. This is about not feeling heard. And instead of that being this situation that you aren't safe to feel heard, and that coming on into an experience as an adult, you're allowing your child to feel safe to be heard, to acknowledge what's happening, and finding their voice in the situation if it's about being heard. Because a lot of people do it, it's like, oh, this is such a silly fight, and it seems like a silly fight because it's over a toy or over something else. It's like, oh, you're just overtired or you're hungry. That actually there's always something deeper there. And if you're already doing that with children and being like, okay, this has got nothing to do with the TV or nothing to do with the treat. This is because when you're with your sibling, you don't feel safe, or you don't get a chance to share your voice, or choose, or whatever the situation is. And let's see how we can compromise, and let's see if we can find a way where you both feel supported.
Well, I love that. And thank you so much for sharing and all the wisdom that you've given us. I think it's really an important conversation to be had, because a lot of times we, especially when children are going through divorce, when there's abuse, when there are traumas and different things like that, we're doing everything we can to help ourselves and help our children. And I hate the thing when people say, well, kids are resilient, they bounce back, right? And maybe they are, right? And maybe that's just a wonderful gift that children have, but let's not forget that they're little tiny humans too. And the more work that we put in, the practice, I should say, the more practice that we put in for our own healing to help them, the better off everybody's going to be. So thank you so much. Tell me, I ask every guest on my podcast to tell us something that not a lot of people know about you.
This is so hard because I am such an oversharer. So I'm like, what do people not know about me? And if they don't know it about me, it's probably because it's like such a like deep, dark secret that I'm like, I can't share that. And in saying that, probably all of my close friends know this about me. So I found it really hard to answer this question, but what do people not know about me? I am obsessed with whales. Obsessed with whales. Yeah, I think maybe maybe my close friends know that because I'm like got like 20 Instagram followings of whales, but maybe that would be my thing. I am obsessed with whales. Like if I see them, I'll like just like stop and like cry or like look in joy. I just like love whales. I'm fascinated about them. They're these dinosaurs of the sea. So I think that is maybe what a lot of people don't know about me.
You have a favorite whale, a favorite kind?
The blue, like the humpback whale, because that's that see, like when it's whale seasons, that's the ones that I come and see. And I'll be like going and sitting at the top of like a mountain. At one point I went like so into like the rocks to be so close to that, and that someone was like, are you okay? Like they were worried about me because I was like sitting up on like rocks just trying to like get close to the whales. So I have a huge obsession with whales. So that
I love that. They're majestic and beautiful and peaceful, and like they're just so like calming, like to watch.
Like they're huge.
Yeah.
they're so just exactly what you're saying. They're peaceful but it's huge. Like it's this huge peace. It's huge expansive. It's expansion and calmness. Like, wow.
Love it. Well, thanks for sharing that. Now tell us, because you had mentioned that you have a website and some mother groups and workshops. So tell us where people can find you and connect with you to get some of your support.
So I'm sure you put it on. I've got a website. I have an Instagram. If you want to connect to me and if you think that my work would support you and you're feeling anxious or needing any support as a parent, just in general, you can go on my website. There's a free discovery course. You can tell me a little bit about what's going on and I can see what we can do next to support you. So come ask me questions, connect if it's me or me putting you in the right direction. And then on Instagram, have a look and see when I'm putting out any free talks or any kind of free little workshops, which I'm in the process of doing and creating. And then also on my website, I've just put out a workshop tab because everyone was like, so you just do one-on-one sessions? Do you have any workshops or this and that? So I've just put that out. And if you're interested, reach out. If you have your own mother group, let me know and I can do a one-on-one session or like a 6-week session, or I can let you know when I'm doing a session, probably on Zoom, because a lot of the clients listening to you, I'm in Australia, won't be from Australia. The idea of the mothers groups is that you kind of have this space when you're a parent, as a new parent, where you kind of like the hospital or whatever might give you your mothers group, but then there's no real mothers group happening at any other stage where people can sit and talk and feel open and connect and have an educator tell them this is where your child is at and this is what your experience, being able to share in a more vulnerable space. I'm sure lots of people have friends and family, but it's not the same as being held in a container. So that's the idea of those workshops. And if you're interested, connect with me and I can let you know when they are happening, which will kind of happen towards the end of this year. Hopefully that's the plan.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. And just to reiterate, just with all of this is like, if you're going through abuse or anxiety and you're listening to this and you're like, oh my God, I'm ruining your children, you're really not. Our children come through us. We don't own them, and they've chosen these experiences and they've chosen this growth, and we just have to trust that they'll get there and they'll have their experience. And just by listening to this, you're already on that path. I just want to reiterate that. And if anyone's like, oh my God, I did this and everything she's saying we shouldn't do, I've done it all, but we can reverse it. We can observe ourselves, get into your intuition, get into flow, and that will be healing for your child. Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
So beautiful to have this.
I love that what you said, because we have to remember this is all just practice, right? This is all just practice. Even parenting is practice. So there's not one right way to do it. There's not wrong ways to do it. There's just ways to do it. And one way might work well for you and it might not work well for me. So this is also the reason that I have people like you on my podcast, because I want people to be able to pick and choose for their healing, right? I want, maybe what I say they like to hear, but maybe they need a little bit more from someone like you to help with the parenting part. Maybe they want to go the psychology or the philosophy route, or maybe they want to learn about breath work, whatever that might be. I think it's important for us to just look at the whole picture, see what works for us and use what works for us, using that, like you said, that intuition, trust yourself as a parent. And that's where you will do your very best. So, thank you so much. I will also include your links to your website and your socials in the show notes. So if anybody wants to reach out to Carli, do that, get those links on my show notes, and or you can message me and I can always put you in contact with her. So have a great day, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thank you for being here with me today in the Emotional Abuse Recovery Podcast. I hope you found value here with me. If this podcast episode was helpful to you, I'd love for you to hit subscribe and leave me a review. My goal is to help you go from feeling stuck to set free. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook, and you can check out whentearsleavescars.com for more resources and information to help you with your own emotional abuse recovery. Until next time, here's to believing in